The Professor's Digital Dojo.
Alright guys, welcome back to the dojo. As requested, I will be doing now the composite of that stone film plate from the Anatomy of a Shot Part 3 that we did, that I did a tutorial on. So first things first, Control I, I'm going to go and start to import these assets. Um, so, oops, sorry, wrong drive. Go to my renders, and it'll be the boulder tutorial, and you'll notice I have three folders here. I've got my stones. Grab all those, open those, and I'm going to rename it Stone Solo. Stone Solo. And you can use whatever nomenclature works for you. Control I, import our next asset. Now I didn't do the AOV thing. I think that's a little too much for you guys. I will do an AOV tutorial, but for now I just want to get this going. So this is going to be our stone shadow. And there we go. Stone shadow. And last but not least, our ambient occlusion pass. Go to that folder here. And again, grab all these. Like I said, I only rendered like 10 frames just so that we could do this kind of quickly, but I'll call this one AO. Now, remember, for all of these, we need to apply a LUT. So I'm just going to grab all three, right-click, and under LUT, I'm going to go down to VFX IO, Visual Effects Input Output, and we're going to go from linear to sRGB. That takes the multi-layer EXR and it reads the alpha channel and gives us all those goodies that we need. And the last thing is I'm going to import the film plate itself, and that'll be my artist archive working and tutorials. So there's our rock garden right there. All right. So what we're going to do is, if I'm looking at this, I can see that it's 1920 by 1080. So I'm just going to go over here. We're going to create a new naked timeline. And under format, 1920 by 1080, 24 frames per second. And I'll just create it. Next thing I'll do, I'm going to drag this in. Let me zoom in on my timeline a little bit. And that should be more than enough for what we're going to be doing. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to come over to my Fusion tab right here. And this is basically my timeline media out, media in. So I'm going to rename this plate like so. And then I'll start to bring my elements in. Now remember, we've got a right and a left. I can kind of pop these up. I can either, like if I pop them up like that and drop them on there, they'll show up, or I can just hit the pip manually like so. Over here, so I can do that. And I think the first thing we're going to bring in is our stone shadow. And I'm going to right click and rename this. You can also just do an F2 shortcut on this, and I'll call this shadow. And then I'll bring in our solo stone. And we'll right click and rename this. Whoops. Stone. Enter. And so now we've got these two things. And basically I want the shadow to be underneath the stone. And the workflow I'm going to use for this is we're going to merge these two together first. And so I'll create a naked merge node, and I do that by just clicking on an empty space in here, and we're going to right click and drag over and make the stone our foreground element. Right click and drag over, and we're going to make the shadow our background element. And now if I were to pop this to media out, you'd see, let me disconnect that, pop this to media out like this, you'll see that we've got the stone with its shadow right here, right? But now I need to bring the plate in on this. And to do that, we're going to create another merge node, like so. I'm going to right click and pull the plate in as the background. And then I'm going to disconnect this. I'm going to right click and bring this merge node in as the foreground. And if we connect these over, you'll see, boom, there we go. Now our shadow's looking a bit weedy, right? In other words, it doesn't have a lot of oomph to it. So there's a couple of things we're going to do. And the first thing is I'm going to put basically a color correct node between the merge node and the shadow node. And remember, we've got a shortcut for it right here. So with that shadow node active, I can click on this and it'll automatically connect those two together. Now, one thing you have to remember when we use a color corrector is we need to come up to options, and I want you to tick pre-divide and post-multiply. That'll keep any weird hinky kind of color behaviors from happening. And then I'm just going to come to the gain and bring that down. I can then use my lift to darken it, like so. And you can see why it was important for me to kind of have control over this shadow solo, sort of separate from all these other shadows. Now, this is not a perfect comp. I wasn't going for that. I'm trying to kind of knock this out quickly. However, I can also go in and kind of control the color a little bit. So we're going to give that just a little bit of coolness to kind of match those others. And I think that lift can come up a little bit, and that gain can maybe come up just a little bit. Actually, it looks like it's got a little bit of red in it. Maybe somewhere around there. Okay. The other thing I might do is I know we wanted this texture on here from this displacement map. However, it's a little bit harsh. So right after this color corrector, let's hit Shift Space to pull up our tool selector, and we're going to put a blur on it. So I'm just going to put like a little bit of a Gaussian blur. I'm going to add that in, and you can see that that strength is far too high, and I'm just going to bring that down maybe about right here. And I can turn this on and off to see how well that's working, and that's pretty good. That's softening it up a bit for me right there. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to do more corrections. This is just a basic showing you guys how we start to composite all of this together. We have one last composite to do, and that is to bring in our ambient occlusion pass to give this stone maybe just a little bit, and where it meets the ground, a little bit more definition. So again, I need a merge node for that. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to, what would be the best way to do this? I think the best way to do it will be, let's put the merge node right here. Let's disconnect the stone and reconnect the stone to this merge node as background. And let's bring in this AO node right here, rename that. AO, boom. And let's connect this as our foreground element. And then we'll connect this back to this merge node as foreground. Now you'll notice the ambient occlusion is just bright white, and that's because we need to change its blending mode. And because it has come into this merge node as the foreground element, as you can see here, AO output to merge 3 foreground, that means that I can change the apply mode to multiply, and that's what I want to do here. And so it's multiplied on top of that. That's a little bit of odd behavior. Let me fix that real quick. And the way we're going to fix that is we've got to come up to this basically where we put the merge in right here. So we've got our AO coming into the merge, and we've set it to multiply. And to get rid of this sort of background black bit right here, we're going to come over to channels. Whoops, go to my AO node right here, and let's go over to EXR format. No, we can do it with channels. Let's keep it simple. So I'm going to come to my merge node here. Let's go to settings, and right here under process, I'm just going to turn off the alpha channel. All right, and what that does, if you can see here, I'll turn the ambient occlusion on and off. It gets rid of that sort of big black chunk we had down there. And so now our ambient occlusion is kind of giving us a little bit more definition. I generally will put another color correct node on my ambient occlusion just to pop the contrast, like so. we go. And you can play with your gain a little bit. I got some funkiness right here. I need to fix that in the render actually. And lift controls our shadow. And now one other thing is here on stone, I'm going to put a color corrector here, and we can start to play. Let's bring, once again, under options, turn on pre-divide, post multiply. And I'm going to increase the gain just a little bit. The lift, which controls our shadows, just a little bit. Push the contrast. And so you can see how we can tweak this. And I'm not going to do this all day, but there we go. So I'm starting to get it to feel like it's a little bit in this scene. It also needs a little bit of magenta to it to kind of match it to these other stones. And now we're fairly close. Again, this would be sort of a process that I would take my time doing. And now I need to send this out because you guys will have this as a sequence, and you can see I've just got 10 frames here. Everything disappears after 10 frames. But to send this out as a video, I'm going to come to my little rocket here, my delivery method, and this time we'll give it a name, and I'll call it Stone. Let's give it a location. I'm just going to put it on desktop so that I can delete this pretty quickly. And we're going to use Format QuickTime, Codec H.264. We're going to add this to our render queue, and then we'll render all. And there you go. That's it. Hope this is helpful. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any issues or any questions, please leave them in the comments or feel free to email me if you have to. Good hunting.